Welcome to another edition of What the Fuck Happenings here in Mendham. That's sort of the beginning of the story. Is the Inmendham channel in some respects the story I'm going to tell, just as a response to one trivial little part where people are always trying to, we're arguing about the truth and philosophical perspective, and what it what it means to be alive and doing this thing, being human. It's taking your bit of time to interact and whatever, change the universe, blah blah blah. You're a collection of a piece of machinery, that takes stuff in and produces it out. And in a sense, you can have a way of producing it out that is, I don't know, little beams of, gamma rays come out of your eyeballs and, disassemble things around you. You can imagine ways that you are interacting that can be like you're spilling acid on the planet and dissolving all of the stuff on the planet, or something like that. You can really metaphor it to just understanding that that's all we really do. We're just taking energy in, and we're going to affect the universe based on how we deposit the energy, just like any other, you could almost say a bug, or even a mosquito, injecting something with a virus and making it possible for the virus to spread and all that kind of stuff. So we are playing those games with our memes, with our ideas, with our personalities. Different things will matter to different people. The whole, the course of human events is contingent on a bunch of silly things like, did you shave today? Was it to piss somebody off that you didn't? Some kind of crap like that will make all the difference. The whole butterfly effect, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, so that's sort of the subject. It's kind of a big subject, kind of an important subject. And there's people who, in the process of disagreeing, they just want to disrupt the whole idea of having the rational conversation. And so they bring up, all kinds of superfluous nonsense that couldn't mean anything to anybody. They're just trying to make enough random noise, throw enough rocks, make enough sounds, so you can't hear the orchestra anymore, and you can't remember the tune, and none of this idea of conveying arguments to other brains and to have them process them properly. They're just trying to disrupt the communication process, because they fear change and particular ideas as being somehow, they know they're wrong. They can't make the argument. They can't play their tune in a fair way next to somebody else's tune and say my tune's better. I'm playing a better song. And because they can't win that way, they can't sell their music, they have to try to disrupt somebody else selling the music so they can make their crap look like it's something, because they're trying to, the thing they're comparing it to is nothing, because they've spoiled it. They've soiled it. So anyway, I think you can get that point. And so, somebody's trying to soil me with turtles, to somehow indicate that I have some sort of hypocrisy, because in interacting in my local community, I attempted to persuade people that maybe having a cesspool in the middle of the town isn't a great idea. One that's not even intentional. It's just a scummy, festering bacterial spog. And, maybe, it at one time was a clean, pretty, healthy environment that you could walk around and gain some peace of mind. And do some reflective thinking, and maybe even think about how difficult and tragic it is for the poor creatures on planet Earth. You could do all of that reflecting and all that kind of stuff instead of holding your nose and saying, "Ooh, that's disgusting." And so because I make some arguments like that, in the sense that as long as we're here, we shouldn't be living in filth. Okay, I mean, I don't want the human race. If you knew the human race was going to end tomorrow, would you really want everybody to just be an asshole and throw garbage out their windows, and the whole place looks like shit in 3 hours, and so we spend our last moments on a dirty, filthy planet? Is that how you would want it to end? So again, there's no conflict between the fact that I have some appreciation for healthy things and let's say unsoiled by random spoilage. Okay, I don't think if we're going to change the world, I would like us to change it on purpose. Okay, not because we were pigs, slobs. See, I shouldn't even say pigs, because we create the sty, not the pigs. We force that on them. So it makes it just more clear how evil we are, in the sense that our selfishness and our expediency and our unwillingness to pay the lunch price is what has caused the mess we're in a lot of respects. It has not made life better, it's made life worse for human beings now, because we don't have rational systems. We have these cobbled together ones, and built out of stupid, insipid compromises with completely opposite ideologies and all that kind of stuff. So yes, it's terrible. But anyway, so yes, I would argue there's absolutely no conflict between the philosophy of understanding that the system itself is not very good, okay, and shouldn't be rewarded, shouldn't be perpetuated into the future, that it doesn't really work, and some notion that we should randomly break it. When the point is no, if we're going to do something, let's do it on purpose. Let's do it thoughtfully, and not by just expedience. Just reckless, sloppy behavior, just being filthy, just throwing too much litter out the window. I mean, that's a silly way to change the universe. So anyway, I'm just saying that people should be able to appreciate that we've all have habitized to a world, and I wouldn't want, as much as I would like to, if I was given the choice, I would certainly do the right thing and cement the planet. Okay, seal the biology out, seal the turn off the meat grinder. But I can't honestly say I'd want to live in Cementville. I can't honestly say, oh, that's really great for humans, because it wouldn't be. So the point is we're going to be here for at least a while. That's the argument. It's going to take a while to for the human race to finally become philosophical in any kind of real sense. Where it actually has, icons to philosophy, where actually people strive to do philosophy correct. They strive to have an accurate notion of reality in their head. Clearly we don't do that. We reward people for singing songs and imitating other people in little movie strips and jumping higher, but we really don't do much of this revering of intelligent conversation or intelligent collection of statements or facts in terms of understanding how they're connected. That's not rewarded at all. So anyway, because the most of the humans don't spend any time appreciating that they have an obligation to function correctly. They just don't do it. They think correct function on the simplest level. Well, I can't even say that some of them could care whether they were polluting other people's drinking water, because there's so many nihilists out there who just think it only matters what happens to them, and everything else is a simulation or some other notions or some other horseshit. But you could just, generally speaking, that they can get the real ABCs right, but they can't go any higher in the alphabet, and most of the alphabet is higher than C. So they're really not getting what it is to be here, because they only have the 3 letters. You can't make too many words out of just those 3 letters. So they're really limited in, and so I think it's just kind of obvious that the intelligent conversation can't really happen until they acquire a few more letters, you know, can understand a few more words, facts, and that's what words are. Anyway, so in that context, so moving on to the real subject, I was thinking about metaphors in ways, you know, to me they tell the story, and so this is about telling the story. And I think, you know, Oldvan did a really good job of telling the story with the Ephelist, in terms of putting it into little pieces of satire, some humor, all of that kind of crap. And that's the kind of thing, you know, I think in the end that will provoke the conversation, you know, force the conversation, in the sense that it overtly tells you there is a subject and people should think about it. And so in that vein, I was thinking about a scenario, okay, a science fiction scenario. You know, how much of it's fiction, who knows? Where, you know, you just do this, the alien thing. Okay, so the aliens do exist. There was a previous intelligence in the universe, and one of its little probes shows up at Earth. And what the probe does is it just takes one of the people, one of the things it's recognized. It's recognized that there's an event taking place on Earth where this complexity thing is happening. And it kind of, because the alien civilization has been there and done all this, they can recognize that, oh, that's can be nothing but trouble. Okay, if the compounds are getting too complicated, they're just going to be, you know, agenda oriented, and it's always bad because it's not a smart builder. They kind of know the elemental universe isn't smart. So whenever it makes something complicated, it makes something dangerous. And I mean dangerous in the sense that it might create this value thing in the universe. This ability for something to be enslaved, to be whipped, to be punished, to be harmed, to be hurt, to experience anguish, you know, horror, fear, all of that kind of crap. So, you know, how, you know, this is the part that gets a little tricky, is writing this, you know, perfectly, in the sense of getting all the science right, getting all the little pieces right about what is possible. You know, how other manifestations of the process of evolution might take place without a reward and punishment mechanism. I mean, is it possible to ever derive intelligence out of an organism that doesn't need to be intelligent, because it won't feel it? You know, it can't be punished for being stupid. Okay, and that's essentially how evolution works, is that it's really relying for, you know, all the big organisms, you know, all the ones that can be more complicated because they have more atoms and more molecules. It is, you know, a game of brain, you know, a game of organizing the operating system. It's not just building the soda machine, it's building the knowledge base where it knows what to do with the quarter, and whether it's a real quarter and all that kind of crap. Quarter, you know. Yeah, I'm old. Quarter, it's so funny. Anyway, yeah, you used to just put a quarter in. Everything was a quarter, you know, for a while, like 1974 or something. I think everything was a quarter. But anyway, pack of cigarettes, Coke, just didn't matter. Every machine was a quarter. So anyway, where was I? Yeah, so aliens, they've been there and done it all, and they know it just doesn't go anywhere. Okay, so I'm just arguing that, let's just assume I could put it in more perfect words, but there's a physical circumstance where complexity can't do anything good in the universe, because complexity just creates vulnerability. It just creates problems that will need to be solved. It doesn't solve any problems in the universe. See, the simple things can't get into trouble. The only things that can get into trouble, the only things you can actually torture, you stick the knife in and they go, a real ouch. The only thing, see, everything else is like virtual matter. Okay, it's like the video game stuff. It doesn't do, you don't have to worry about killing it and all, ouch, ouch, and all that stuff, harming something, taking something, stealing something, hurting something. There's no real consequence for all the little stuff, the uncomplicated stuff. But the more complicated it gets, the more vulnerable you are to actually sticking your knife in something where you did some real damage. You did something that can be called damage, meaningful damage, because something will have to experience those sensations. You should have some familiarity with those sensations, and you can just understand that. Well, what if you're only feeling half as bad as what other people feel when they have the same sensation? What if it's 1/3? What if it's 1/4? So I mean, it's to sort of relate. The subject. The thing I thought about was the religious guy. What was his name? Ken Hovind. Admitting, okay, that basically if he didn't believe in God, he would be an anti-natalist. If he didn't believe in God, he'd be anti the whole thing, because, yeah, he does think it's awful expensive, this life thing. And it wouldn't be worth it. Without God's purpose and without this reward of being free from the pain and suffering, he wouldn't do it. Anyway, just to point out, blah, 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 that there are, this is contingent on a certain kind of philosophy, a philosophy that negates the importance of sensation, and in terms of understanding it as a value in the universe. That if the universe was capable of contemplating, if it had some sort of elemental brains that could have a conversation, that brain, or that intelligence, I should say computers, just because we should make it incapable of being motivated by its own agenda. But it would be clear that you'd have to, any intelligence would always come to the conclusion that obviously this sensation thing is a significant event, where the rest of the events in the universe really just can't matter. There is no good and bad. There is no value. And it was in the process of synthesizing value, as I've pointed out, that nature fell on making the real thing. We wanted to make a value engine to be the to be the the yin to the yang of the brain's function. It needed to turn things in the environment into something that had to be important. Just for the whole sake of the reproduction, and to achieve and to strive and to do the competition. There has to be some illusion of value in you chasing and you achieving. And to create the illusion of value, to give these things value, just things in the environment value, it had to create a perception in your brain that somehow associates it with something that gives it the value, because it doesn't have any. Its reality in the universe doesn't have any value. It's only what you can project onto it that can have value. And that's when, as soon as you're projecting sensations, as soon as the thing becomes important to your survival and your comfort and your peace of mind and all of that mush, then it becomes really valuable, because now the welfare of a sentient organism is going to be dependent on it. But anyway, so back to the story. Just drawn in the crayon, the simplest drawing of it. But I just sort of wanted to use it just because each piece of it, like I said, I'm stumbling over it right now just because there's so much nuance you can add to it in terms of the argument. But let me get to the fundamental argument, and then you can process that while you're not paying attention later. All right, so the point is the aliens have made a probe that, so it finds complexity, and then if the complexity is at a level where it's actually got cities and is manipulating the environment, It pulls one representative of that, and and it basically tries to instruct it. Try to, something that can possess information. Obviously, you have to have knowledge to be able to manipulate the environment and all that kind of stuff. So it has some capacity to understand. The idea is the aliens will just tell you the story. Okay, this is what is happening on your planet. All right, you're a biological organism. You've evolved. This is the process. It's just tool making. Evolution makes tools. You have a set of tools that are useful for perpetuating your survival. You may have achieved a point now where, you've broken a lot of the evolutionary rules. You invented condoms, and you didn't really make life consequential physically anymore. It was more about, you have to have the right philosophy to survive. You have to avoid being a Nazi, or, you have to be on the right side in the war. Lots of things like that. And so you've broken a lot of the rules, but you're still obedient to this purpose thing, where you have some notion of it, and you go out and try to achieve it. But then it's really all you can do in the world is really just fix things that your complexity broke, because the rudimentary universe doesn't have any crisis. It doesn't have any problem, because nothing's being tortured. You might hear the sound of whips, but there's no back. There's no victims, real ones. You can't hurt a paramecium. You can't hurt, all these other machines. They don't have the capacity to manifest hurt. Ouch. That didn't feel good. Okay, because that takes a certain amount of neurology to make the theater to do that. Takes a certain amount of brain space to create the projector and the screen and the little asshole sitting in the chair going, ouch, or I like that, I don't like that. That's quite complex. So anyway, so the simple universe is doing just fine. So anyway, they're going to spell out all of these facts, and they're going to inundate you with such a perfect, description of all of it, that there's not going to be any hope. They're going to explain why, yes, the God delusion, that's what all the ignorant organisms, they all go through that stage. They all go through the silly stage of thinking this has to be about something. Maybe it's like, I'm an ant, and there's a God that's controlling my anthill, and, all this kind of... So they all go through that silly stage. But it's just silly, and they just make that crap up. Okay? It doesn't have any connection to reality. There's never any Jesus. There's no immaculate conceptions. There's no fairy, cloud heaven bullshit. All of that is just nonsense. So it makes all of these basic arguments about the mechanics of your existence. Explains the meat grinder. Yes, the whole system is dependent on a tiny percentage of the Xeroxed copies have imperfections that are improvements. A tiny, tiny percentage. Most of them have characters in the wrong place, periods in the wrong place. They have something wrong with the copy. The copy is broken in some way that makes it less effective. And a certain number of the copies are identical copies, which is really unusual, right? Especially in terms of sexual reproduction, that's not even going to be possible. So we're really just talking about whether the copy has improvements or deficits. And then, when you get more and more advanced life forms, it becomes a trade-off between a bucket of improvements and a bucket of, destructions, breaking, periods in the wrong place versus, commas in better places. So you're just measuring a kind of grammar, or you could, lots of ways you could metaphor it in terms of what evolution is producing. But the very idea, just being told the story, that the idea is that 99% of the copies are fodder, are just created for the purpose of creating this one thing that's going to be a little bit better. It's going to have, it might have flatter feet, but it has X-ray vision. It has some, advantage. That's a real advantage. And so all you're in is this competition to create as many failures. It's, you know, just this huge volume of things that will fail. They will not achieve the goal. And again, in some, you know, the aliens will show you the videos of the, you know, the coral producing billions of polyps, or, you know, trillions, you know, the seeds, the number of seeds being expelled, and the number of, you know, juvenile struggling to survive, that will be annihilated in these, you know, horrid ways. Again, I can use the analogy: a sea turtle might produce 10,000 eggs in its lifetime, probably more actually, but regardless, so 2 can survive. 2 out of 10,000. So again, if you had to go stop those 99,998 little turtles, how would you feel about that? Would you feel, wow, I'm really doing well? Look at that, squish, 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 squish. You know, and it's still wiggling after you squished it, because it's not quite finished. Its brain hasn't been crushed, so its brain is still processing. Oh, I have 4 broken legs, and I'm, you know. Anyway, so it's showing you this is what you're part of. It's just a mechanical biological process. A piece of chemistry could reproduce, and, you know, maybe the aliens will show you different ways that this DNA model could be replicated in some other form, not DNA, you know, some other kind of molecule that could store bits of information in it and therefore evolve. And then that, you know, that cellular life form had to convert into a form of life that's not cellular, that's not made out of that DNA molecule explicitly anymore. It's made out of enslaving a bunch of those molecules, it's enslaving a bunch of cells to some organization that now can make a brain and electricity, and now can make the theater, you know, the consciousness. So we're not even, you know, I've made these arguments. We're not even, the definition of life is silly, because technically we're not living things. Because technically we're not a cell with a DNA molecule. You know, we're a bunch of enslaved cells, you know, cells that have been forced to be liver cells, and forced to be this, and forced to be this, and you know, all, you know, we're not brick, we're building. It's just a different kind of thing. You can't call them the same thing. You can't call brick, you can't call a building brick. It just doesn't make any sense. We're not life, you know, we're life plus, and whatever. Life V2, you know. But anyway, see, these are all important contextual pieces of information, in my opinion. It really is important for a human being to understand this distinction, and to understand the whole process of evolution, and to understand the obstacles that existed in terms of how many levels of complexity we had to go through, and how rare achieving that complexity was. So that's another argument the aliens will make to you quite decisively, that this thing doesn't happen too much. Okay, now I don't think it happens ever, frankly. Okay, but let's just, you know, we're just pretending this is, you know, your physics, not my physics. You think it's possible there could be aliens and all that crap. So you know, other life in the universe that's doing intelligence. I say, just, there's so many hurdles that we had to jump through to get there. There's just no chance anybody could ever run that race, that perfect race, that perfect a race, because the obstacle course is so demanding. There's no way you can't slip. There's no way you can't miss one jump by a little tiny bit. You know, you can't hit the perfect shot every single time. You know, 10,000, you know, 3 throws in a row, and you got 10,000 in a row. No, swish. No chance. But anyway, back to the scenario. We're almost there. We're almost to the punchline part. So the idea is the aliens will just flood you with this information, and the pretext is that it's convincing. And so what I'm basically saying as an analogy to that is that in looking at the world and the facts, I'm quite convinced that's the truth. It's a mechanical universe. It doesn't have a brain. when it makes complexity, it's not going to do it carefully or well. Okay, it's going to do it with, there's every probability it'll do it badly. If it creates anything like a china shop, it's going to break a lot of china because it has no brain. It has no capacity to know, you know, that table's this way, stuff slides off the table. It just doesn't know, and it doesn't know to even care. So I'm just saying it's not going to handle the responsibility of playing with these complex pieces of chemistry in any way, carefully or rationally or logically or any of that stuff, because it has no knowledge of it, no knowledge of what it's done and how important it is that it take care of the precious sentience. All right, so the argument is that you're really, you know, I'm really quite convinced. So this metaphor fits in the sense that I don't need the aliens to show up, kidnap me, and explain the truth, because I already know it. Okay, I'm already haven't failed to use my brain correctly, and I didn't fall for silly religious notions, and I didn't fall for all this presumptive stuff. Life is good because the corporation says so. Yeah, I didn't fall for any of that crap. Yeah, so looking at it realistically, I know it's just a bug planet. You know, we're bugs. Yeah, we can sing and dance, and we can count to 4, and we can do all that kind of crap, but it doesn't really mean much. And clearly, if you look at the humans functioning on Earth, you know, the little bugs moving about, they're, you know, they haven't got a clue. I mean, they're just as mechanically insectoid as they can get. You know, just doing their little manipulations, their little chasing of the pheromones, and the little, you know, if you just watch the people going to their McDonald's and doing this and doing that, and they go poop, it's all just bug behavior. 99% of it. None of it has any higher ambitions. It's just satisfy the physical urgencies. You know. So anyway, it's a bug planet, and it's just horrible that, you know, it's annihilating by principle stuff, you know, just by principle. That's the whole point. Just kill it so we can make more copies and try to improve it by making most of the copies that won't be an improvement and killing them. And then we'll make the one that is good, and we'll let him have sex, and then we'll kill him. You know, we'll let the salmon swim up the stream, and then we'll just fuck him over so badly. And he has no clue he's stepping into that shit. So anyway, and then you can, you know, make the imposition arguments and different arguments about how, you know, none of that could ever be justified. You know, this slavery to this engine of useless complexity. Complexity can't accomplish a damn thing. If there were Martians, you would be totally uninvested in their survival. You would probably find them just disgusting aliens. Okay, they just really wouldn't, you wouldn't want them for any purpose. They wouldn't be very useful. They wouldn't be highly attractive and smell very well. And you'd be totally uninvested. And that's the reasonable perspective. That's perfectly rational, because they don't have any use to you. You know, let's just assume they don't have higher knowledge and all this other stuff, that they're just really obnoxious, and they don't have any good habits, and don't wipe their feet. They're like an unhouse-trained pet. You know, and they're not even like that in the sense that, like I said, they could be overtly repulsive. You'd have no interest in, oh, let's preserve them for the sake of preserving them. No, you'd recognize it has no value, it has no use. And we have no use to the universe. There's no, you know, there's no anything that could find us useful. It's just really not, except as food or, yeah, something to exploit. Certainly we could enslave the Martians if they were dumb enough, right? Find some way to exploit them, sell them, you know, Chinese crap. You know, just, you know, get rid of our surplus. You know, through some government contract, you know, where you get paid 5 times too much for it and all that kind of crap. I think I got to the punchline almost, right? So the idea is is the aliens are going to show you a truth that just it doesn't going to have any of these assumptions you have about redeeming purpose and the possibility of doing something. There really isn't any possibility except, basically creating a delusion in your head that you need to go fuck something, and you'll get 5 minutes of fun out of it, and then you'll sit there and wonder, what the hell was that? What was I just doing? Why was I doing it? It'll occur to you that I don't even like this person. What am I doing here? Anyway, I'm just saying the goal will never be it'll always be the Christmas scenario or something like that. You're more enthusiastic the week before Christmas as a kid than you are the week after Christmas. And it really shouldn't be that way, right? It should sort of somehow you should be better off. You should be in a better frame of mind. But we just have a list, and the list just rotates of our dissatisfactions. So sometimes we're better off just having the ambition than to actually have successfully captured whatever we're after, because we seldom truly appreciate all the liabilities that comes with the acquisition. How much work it's going to be to maintain, how hard you're going to have to work to keep it, all of this, how many big offense you're going to have to make to keep it, all this bullshit. So it's just a state of mind, this whole ambition thing, this whole need to accomplish, blah, 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 blah. It's all psychology. It's all part of the enslavement and the addiction and all that crap. Well, anyway, the aliens are going to explain all this stuff to you, even more than, a lot more than I did. And they're going to give you this very bleak perception of what complexity is, and it's going to be a really well-made argument. They're going to have lots of time to do it, right? And you can't play this game, well, I made all these really great counter arguments to the alien's not going to care about your counter arguments. It's heard them all before. Okay, and it's going to just explain how that's all just bullshit rhetoric. That's just your psychology being obvious, your ambitions, your inferiority complexes, your resentment, your hatred. That's just your petty psychology at work. And so the point will be is in the end, the aliens are going to give you a simple, after they've instructed you about how precious sentience is, how precious a single tortured moment in a brain is, how gratuitously it's spoiled and wasted in the process of this silly evolution. It is literally a meat grinder. I mean, that's all it does. It doesn't have some kind of purpose. The meat doesn't get eaten. Okay, it just grinds it up and it just spills, and the bacteria eat it. The whole thing doesn't do anything but harm sentient creatures. Anyway, the point's going to be is that the aliens are going to say it's your choice. Okay, I've given you all the facts. I've explained to you how there's no real hope. There's no God. There's no redeeming purpose. This whole process of just being addicted and chasing requires you to first be put in a negative state, first to feel inferior and feel unaccomplished, feel like you need to do something, feel the want and the angst and the discomfort with your circumstance before you move at all. And so you're going to have a negative frame of mind before you can even achieve your comfort. And that's all you're doing. You're just taking all there is. Even if I could reduce it to the one argument I've made in terms of understanding, that there are no carrots to motivate the horse. There's just the whip. And the idea is I can make the horse think he's being positively motivated by just removing the negative. The removal of the negative will seem to the horse as a positive. I've just been rewarded. I got, free snack food. No, it's not a reward. It's just the removal of a punishment. And, if that one point could be made in such a way that you would understand it, and understand that that's really all that's driving you, it starts with a negative. The first act is a negative act. And so all you can get back to is zero. There's nothing to gain here except undo your negatives. Life, the having consciousness pushes you under the quicksand, and you just spend the rest of your life trying to get back to nowhere, not in quicksand, not in the negative, out of a deficit. You never have a profit. You're just struggling to get back to zero. All right, so that's my zero-sum game kind of argument. Well, anyway, so the whole thing is, as a metaphor, is just saying this. You could do the theater of this movie would be just the idea, okay, of this human having been captured by the aliens and being inundated by this philosophy through, a computer talking to it, some kind of HAL thing, 2021 or whatever it was, 2001. Yeah, we didn't come close to any of that shit, did we? Yeah. So yeah, it's just going to be the interesting thought interaction, between the alien intelligence and the human. And the end game is just going to be, Hal is going to say, it's on you, okay? I'm going to let you make the decision. I can clean it up costing nothing, okay? Nothing will even know it got disintegrated. It's just going to stop. There just won't be any more. It just won't exist anymore. There won't be any anguish. There won't be any fear. There won't be any pain. There won't be any loss. There won't be any grief. There won't be anything negative. There'll just be an end to suffering continuing. Victims continuing. The meat grinder will just stop. No meat, no grinding, no any of it. It's just done. We're done playing this silly bug game. Okay? It's the perfect insecticide. Okay? None of the bugs squiggle and go through any kind of horror. Nothing. It just stops. Or it continues. I go on my way, you go back, and now you're responsible for every single misery ever endured for the rest of time on this planet. And see, I want to put a catch in though, right? I want to put a catch in where you actually have to. Now you as the human, your consciousness, your brain has to actually spend eternity actually stepping on all the turtles, actually ripping all the creatures, all the seals getting their leg ripped off by a shark or something. You have to be the one who's right there, tearing the limbs off. It's on you. You have to do it. You have to see it. You have to, understand. In some way you almost want them, you have to be able to feel their pain. Like you have to spend eternity feeling their pain. Yeah, that might be a good way to do it. Because the aliens could just make the argument to you, look, we're gonna just have you spend eternity experiencing all of those sufferings. And that's all you're going to do. You're just going to hop from one horrible experience to the next horrible experience to the next horrible experience to the next horrible experience. And you're just going to do that forever. Okay, that's going to be the price paid. Well, then we know these people will all say, no, I don't want to do that. Then they'll clearly fuck the human race. They'll fuck the planet because they're not going to volunteer to do that. To spend trillions and trillions of years just enduring, torture. Absolute torture. Torturous events. Over and over and over and over and over and over and over again. No, they're not going to do it. Because they're going to know there's nothing worth it. Their knowledge that, but humans can sing and dance, and sometimes they achieve great things. They hit a certain number of baseballs over a fence, or they do some other really great thing. Yeah, that's worth torture. All right, so in the end, this is really, some of this is so simple because it really just comes down to is what you really have here are people who are so obnoxiously attached to the tradition that they can't understand the reasoning at all. You know, I mean, again, I've made these arguments about sports, right? We know we have some sports that have just gotten stupid, and all you do is paralyze kids for this organized sport. And so why don't we just create a new sport? A new sport that just isn't as likely to paralyze a kid. So let's have a sport where, yeah, you know, let's take out some of the sloppy bits, you know, where everything goes really wrong and you paralyze people. Yeah, let's not do that anymore because it's stupid. So whatever damage there is, let's do it intelligently. Let's do it to, you know, maximize the reward and minimize the cost. But I mean, just the fact that you could make this argument that there's people on this planet who actually think it's worth it. That, you know, a bunch of morons, you know, opening champagne bottles go, we're world champions, we won the World Series. Yeah, we paralyzed some kids, so who the hell fuck that? We're champions. I mean, it's so stupid. I mean, if you really thought about it, right? You're saying that somehow this is worth it? Your silly celebration that you were genetically born with a little bit superior physique and this and that. All the little stupid things that made you the champion, right? The stupid things you had nothing to do with. You're almost like Tiger Woods in a way. I mean, right? I mean, he didn't do anything. His father turned him into a slave to this ambition. You know, without the enslavement, he wouldn't have been. You know, wouldn't have happened. Very low likelihood. You know, who knows? You know, he might be a computer programmer somewhere. Who knows what he would have been, right? So, you know, this is kind of just so silly. You know, that I could actually have this argument and actually have to persuade somebody that you really think it's worth paralyzing a 10-year-old kid for that. Yeah, you think that makes sense. We've optimized human functionality. No, that's not an optimization. You're not doing it right. It's too stupid. But I'm just saying I'm arguing that this scenario is just almost on a parallel with that in terms of there is no rational way for one of these naysayers to say, oh, sure, I would take it on. Yeah, I would say, yes, leave it alone. I'll be responsible for all the pain and suffering because I know it has a good purpose. I know it's not a bug planet. No, you don't. You don't have any such knowledge. You know, all these people with the religious faith, I mean, oh really, are you sure enough to impose it on others? You're going to sit there, and when I force you to go to the hospital bed of all the kids with leukemia, you know, and explain to them, you know, we're worth it. Yeah, trust me, we're worth it. You know, God says so. I mean, it's just too silly. You know, that you're going to defend, you know, your faith against those horrors. And again, the religious, you know, one of the, you know, Ken Hovind, one of the little spokesmen for the religious perspective, concedes that, no, if I knew there was no God, I don't want to do that. I don't want responsibility for imposing all of that horror. Yeah. So anyway, I believe I'll take a pause and reflect if there needs any summing up. But anyway, I think it'd make a good movie. So like all of my movie scripts, it's only 1 page long. But there's so much room in there for an interesting story, interesting dialogue, interesting what would be the Star Trek kind of how would Captain Kirk get out of this one? You know, say it was the Enterprise and they were going to have a vote. You know, the aliens say, okay, we're just going to let you people vote. Here's the facts. You vote. How would they rationalize Captain Kirk, you know, making the decision to, you know, no, impose the suffering, keep imposing the suffering, keep imposing the suffering. You know, how could they rationalize it? I mean, Mr. Spock, of course, would be going, yes, even though, you know, I'm a shitty Vulcan and am seldom very logical, you know, even I can get this one. Yeah. Yeah, it's fail. We look, on Vulcan, we should have admitted that, you know, bazillion years ago. Yes, it's fail. I mean, duh. It doesn't work. It doesn't do anything. It just enslaves people to silly programs. Enslaves people into being golfers and enslaves them to be baseball players or programmers or this or that. Some stupid enslavement. Enslave them to speaking Japanese. Enslave them to speaking English. Enslave them to, liking women with big bottoms. Enslave them. It's just all slavery all over the place. And just robots. Just silly robots speaking silly different languages, just doing this crap. Beep, 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 beep. Where's the white women at? It's just bullshit. There's no, there's no function here. Ugh. Anyway. Yeah, I'll take a break and then we'll finish up. It's just, I think about it, it's just so ludicrous that, wow, humans have advanced so little. I mean, not only is our technology not 2001, up to 2001's snuff, we're going backwards, in terms of people's ideologies and contextual understanding of the real game we're playing, So anyway, I'll be back. I think I'm back. Alright, so I was just thinking, what would, if I was to play the role of one of these obnoxious, life-loving, or whatever, ignorance-loving, because some of them don't even love life, they're just saying, we can't know the truth, we don't know anything, we can't know anything, we can't know anything, kind of bullshit. But anyway, I'm just... So for like the Steve Godfreys, we're supposed to believe that if they were in this scenario, they would be storming out of the alien ship going, no, 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 it isn't like that. And it's no big deal. Yes, okay, go ahead, blame me. I'm going to torture everything in the future. Everything's pain and suffering will be on me. Okay, I've made the decision to keep the stupid experiment running. The just horrible experiment. Like I said, this is like, I've used these metaphors before, but this is like some weird scientist comes up with some dopey rat experiment where the rats just get torn to pieces. They go in one way and only one rat comes out of the other end. The rest of the rats come out in little pieces. I mean, torn up, just disemboweled, dismembered, any kind of British torture system, kind of horrors. Anyway, and what he's going to sit there and say that he can honestly say he's so confident that the game has a purpose that he is actually willing to have his signature on every one of the tragedies. Every autistic kid, every person born with some horrible genetic disease that makes their own skin hurt all the time or something. I mean, all the horrible shit that people have to endure. All the people who will be third-degree burned and spend years in the hospital and have to have their face transplanted and all this crap. He would put his signature on all of it and say, yeah, I know it's for the best. I know it's for the best. He would say that into their ears. I know it's for the best. I know it's for the best. I know it's for the best. Even though they say, why are you doing this to me over and over again? Some of the victims are saying that right to his face. Why do you keep doing this to me over and over again? Why do I have to keep doing this? Why am I being a slave to your signature? Why am I being a slave to this notion you have? Where do you justify torturing me over and over again? He's ready to deal with that. He's ready to deal with the victim's actual testimony. I don't want to. He doesn't, what are you going to say when they say, I don't want to do it again, Steve? Why do you keep throwing me into this fucking boiling oil? You fuck. He's ready to say, I know what's best. I know it's for your good. You ready for that, Steve? You're so confident. You're ready to take on those conversations. I don't think so. You have no humility. You're an idiot. You You haven't constructed any worldview or philosophy that is at all rational. My feelings matter, but no one else's do. They're all nihilist. I mean, just understand, all of them are nihilist. You know, the Farley and the Steve Gardfreys and that other putz that's, you know, I don't know, whatever. You see some kind of anti-natalist that's part of international anti-natalism or whatever, whatever his name was. The turd that did the 3-hour video interrogation. He's a nihilist, for fuck's sake. He really doesn't think, oh, this is an art problem. Suffering is bad, but that doesn't mean you ought to do something about it, because bad doesn't mean anything. Too stupid. So anyway, I guess I should just have some sort of veiled reference to some other event that happened this week. A tool I use, you know, I've shown them in my videos before. You know, this is just a web browser tool that nobody really cared to use and all that stuff. I invented it, you know, whatever, 12 years ago. It was kind of innovative at the time. You know, I exploited some of Microsoft stuff you could take advantage of. So you could really rip stuff out of web pages. You could, you know, well, anyway, it was quite useful, I thought. Well, anyway, I've always used it as a link gathering notepad kind of tool. So anyway, I had one that ended up being public that shouldn't have been. Okay, and so it had some of my personal links on it. Okay, links to private videos by other people, links to some of my own private videos that weren't private. They were just unlisted videos that were private videos. That is, they were only intended for my family members or for stuff like that. And anyway, so somebody, I think, had to spoof it in the sense that they found the link and guessed at it, because I don't name things very creatively. But anyway, so they ended up linking it to something else that ended up getting it in the Google index. Once you put a link, like so, to an unlisted video on a public page, then Google can put keyword references to that link in that page, in that context, and you thought it was unlisted. Well, it was unlisted until Google listed it, of course. So that's sort of the problem. But anyway, so I'm, you know, I feel really bad, you know, stupid, and you know, but there's so many things to do, and I really hate living in a world where you know, our obligation is to have all this security, you know, putting bars on the windows and cameras and all this crap and blah blah blah. You know, I really hate, you know, paying that, investing in, you know, it's like why I don't own a gun. I don't like investing in it. I don't invest in the negatives, you know. I attempt to invest personally in something positive. You know, protecting myself against the malicious trolls. I don't want that to be my agenda. I don't want that to be a waste of my time. I have to waste a certain percentage of my capital in life. And clearly our society is like that. It has to waste a tremendous amount of capital on shoplifters and jaywalkers and litterers and all these jackasses who can't, you know, play by the rules. So that sucks. Okay, but it's a fact of the world we live in, and I didn't draw the line of establishing enough security high enough, and so I made that mistake. And I'm very, like I said, I'm very sorry to any of the people that have been hurt by that mistake of mine. Other people hurt by it. Again, the whole way the assholes work is they don't even care about punishing the right person. You know, as I pointed out before, I mean, sort of my personal information only has value now because it affects other people. And they just don't care. They think they're attacking me, and they know, because I've overtly told them, I couldn't care less, asshole. That was clear. When I was living alone in my life, I didn't care about any of this shit. But I don't have my own life anymore. And I've pointed out that all you're doing is directly attacking somebody else to get to me. You're just an extortionist. You know, you're just saying, I'm going to hold a gun to your kid, and, you know, do what I say, or I might shoot them. Yeah, it's so fucking disgusting. Anyway, so also in that context, there's a subtle little subject I don't know quite how to deal with. Somebody 6 months ago emailed me links, okay, to public information that's out there, but what do I care? about certain individuals. So it was basically they were doxing somebody on YouTube. And they sent me the links. Those links, you know, just because I put them from email, I could transfer them into my browser so I could go to the links, right? So I just stored the links. And that's it, you know. But the information clearly motivated by people who just want to use character assassination. See, I don't want to have an argument with somebody where I just use personal information against them and, oh, I win the argument because I attacked them personally. You know, it's the old Thunderfoot kind of, you know, he destroyed whatever his name was, that silly little religious kid. He didn't destroy him by beating him, you know, arguing religion. He just went, you know, right after his personal life and destroyed his character as a spokesperson on YouTube. You know, and that's not the way we want to win, I don't think. I don't think decent people want to win an argument that way. But anyway, the point is I have absolutely no interest in doing this character assassination thing. I want to beat people on, you know, I don't care if they sometimes put horseshoes in their glove. I want to beat them anyway. You know, and so anyway, so I had this information. I never did anything with it. That's quite obvious. It's clearly, you know, just by the link order, it's clear. I had the information 6 months ago. I never doxed anybody, never did any of that stuff. So clearly I had no intent for any of this information to be public. Clearly I didn't make that link public because it's attached to other stuff that damages me personally that got revealed, and stuff that damages other innocent victims. So clearly that no one could logically argue I intended anything to be made public. And that's clear. So I just want to make it clear to anybody who might have some notion that, you know, believe the liars, you know, who say all kinds of crap. Clearly, I didn't dox anybody, through any act of volition. So it's just absent. It was only incidental, like I said, because some troll sent me an email. And that's the only reason why it happened. And I'm sorry to whatever happens. I'm sorry to anybody victimized by these assholes who can't make arguments on the subject and who hide why they do this too, right? They do this character assassination thing, this attempt to find hypocrisies, and they reveal nothing about themselves. They don't make themselves vulnerable to the same thing. And it's just so tacky. And the fact that there are some people persuaded by that is just more evidence that the audience is also dumb as fuck. You know, that the average person is just an enabler, because they are drama whores. They do just chase blood. They sniff it. They're just ambulance chasers too. They've shown it. This is what they gravitate to, you know, as human beings. And so who's worse? You know, the person who puts the blood, you know, the person who puts the fail video on YouTube, or the people watching it? I mean, who's more despicable? So anyway, that's my statement, frankly. You know, I think it's an open question, frankly, who's more despicable, but they both suck. So the people who are, you know, feeding on the Steve Garvey, you know, National Enquirer channel, you know, are just as bad as the Enquirer. They're just as bad as the people making up the stories. The people believe in the silly stories are just as bad as the people telling the silly stories. Because they're obviously silly. But anyway, enough said about that. Like I said, I don't want to get into any kind of crap. You know, like I said, my bad for not putting my content in secure enough place. Okay, clearly no intent to make anything public. I just didn't make it private enough. I didn't keep it far enough out of people's touch. And you could argue, you know, to some extent, I didn't delete the videos from way back in the past that have my name and address and all that kind of crap in it. My old address, anyway. I didn't delete all that stuff, but I don't think it was necessary. There's no realistic prospect that it makes me that easy to identify where I lived or any of that kind of stuff. Very unlikely people watch those videos. Blah, 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 blah. And so they take advantage of that and say because it's in one tiny, isolated, tiny crack in the sidewalk, and they dig it out and put it right on your front door. I mean, what is that? That's just, again, them. That's them making it public. It's not because it's public in any real sense. So it's just really so despicable. But there's nothing you can do. This is the planet of assholes. So there's lots of assholes doing assholey things. But they're certainly not arguing the argument. And that's disappointing. So anyway, enough of a video. And so chill the next time. And such. Yeah. I think that's it. There's probably some other little news bit, but I don't. Maybe next time. And such. So forth and whatnot.